Hello. Welcome back to Two Rivers Tabac Book Club. This is another episode of Quick Reads with your host, me, Joshua, and my friend, Andrew. Say hello, Andrew.
Hey everyone.
There we go. He said hello. We're here today. We're here today after reading The War of the Worlds. Let's see, by H.G. Wells. What year was this book written again?
I believe it was 1898, but let me double check.
1898. This book has been known as a classic, and for good reason too. I enjoyed it. Now, when it comes to the first person aspect of it, I don't really care too much for stories like that. So I wouldn't say for me personally, it was like an amazing read, but I definitely enjoyed a lot of like the themes in the story itself.
Yeah,
So,
I completely agree. I feel like it's the writing style was a little bit harder to follow, especially coming off of these really good books that we just have been covering lately, like Dark Tower series, Wheel of Time series. We're gonna come out with this episode about Of Mice and Men, which is also a good book. This book is kind of written, like you said, in a first person way. It's kind of hard to follow, but you can appreciate it for what it did for like sci-fi, right? So like it was written in
oh yeah.
1898 and was one of the first books that went down the rabbit hole of if Martians existed and if they invaded the United, or not the United States, but invaded in London in this case, what would happen. So
Yeah. And what was interesting about them, probably one of the most interesting things for me is that like in the book they're like, yeah, and then when the Martians like the tripods were attacking them, it'd be like, oh, the horses and carriages are like burned to a crisp and like all this stuff, and I'm like, damn, I've never seen a horse and carriage when it wasn't like an October festival or something, but like people riding horses and carriages all the time, you know, in this day and age. So it's like when I'm trying to think of like aliens attacking during those kind of days, and it's just like, oh yeah, you're fucked. Like you're like there's kind of maybe an argument for now to where in us modern times, like we have some pretty sophisticated weapons, but aliens who are able to come all the way over here from across the universe, probably gonna have stuff a lot more advanced. So I thought that comparison of technology is obviously like one of the main themes in this book when it comes to which race is more superior, the humans or the Martians.
yeah, and I like the part you brought up about the horse and buggy. Being that this book was written in 1898, obviously the author has a perspective of 1898 technology. So, like you said, they have horse and buggy. They don't have very advanced weaponry like we do now. I mean, if Martians attack now, we have pretty advanced weaponry. I mean, maybe not compared to whatever they would bring, like you're talking about, but we have a lot better weapons than we had in 1898. But
Yeah. Yeah.
that yeah, it's in
Yeah.
fact I even wrote that down in a note here, but exactly what you're talking about. But it's kind of cool to have a story where you have a Martian invasion or an alien invasion, and instead of like the Independence Day style that I think of when I think of like an invasion, and I'm talking about the movie Independence Day, where we have like advanced weaponry. In this book, like you said, it's horse and buggy and stuff. So it's kind of cool to see, the classic alien invasion, but the humans have really limited equipment compared to like most modern sci-fi stories where the humans have pretty strong equipment. So
Yeah. And it's like in like modern alien stuff, it's a little bit harder to believe with some of the stuff just because of our weaponry. And it's just like, oh, a nuclear bomb just doesn't work. And it's like, okay. But like back in like the 1800s, or like I guess in this case, like what was it closer to 1900? But back with the whole technology of what they had with their muskets or whatever guns they had before the first world modern war, uh, it's just a lot more. There's a lot more at stake. Like there's more suspense in this book than a lot of the other like alien stuff I've seen. besides, the movie Alien and Aliens, those movies are great. But uh but like book wise, it's like I'm gonna personally say I haven't read too many like alien stories, maybe besides like Dune. Want to count Dune. But yeah, just because of the technology at this time, it's a lot more suspenseful for me when reading it because it's like no matter what, I know like these people are not going to be able to fight the Martians like equipment, like the tripods and stuff like that. Like they don't like have anything
Yeah,
compared to like
definitely.
modern day.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It and obviously we know usually in these stories that the humans are eventually going to win, but yeah, I wasn't sure how they were going to win, considering like you said they don't have good equipment. I mean, if you, just imagining aliens invading in 1898, I mean it would just be too easy. And in this book, it is really easy for them until obviously the germs get to them. Got to wash your
Germs.
hands, kids.
Yeah, how did wash your hands? How how did you like the germ thing? Because real quick is like I loved it because I've never like seen that ever. Like I always I've seen the World's movie before, so it's like I already knew beforehand that the germs were going to be the thing that killed them, and if that didn't kill them, then basically they would have just taken over the earth. But it for me it's like you don't really see that often. It's more like when an alien some has to do with aliens. It's just that they're either smarter, have better technology, or they're just physically stronger, stuff like that. But these aliens weren't. They're like little squid-like creatures. They're kind of like look like the brain guy from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Krang.
Yeah,
Like they're basically little Krang monsters. So, what did you think about the bacteria
yeah.
thing?
And you talking about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, it made me think of when they were described to me, I thought of like Cthulhu from like oh my god, from like Lovecraftian like lore, but
Yeah.
just the head, not the body of
Yeah.
but just like like yeah, like you said, they're just heads with like tentacles. They're not really that physically
Yeah.
imposing. They're creepy looking, obviously, to like a
Yeah.
human. But yeah, they're not physically imposing. It's mainly like their technology, which is scary. But I like the ending as well because I think it's a good it was a good way to end it without it being like open war cuz obviously the humans aren't going to win with
Yeah.
1898 technology. Even today if aliens came to us now, even with our technology, I don't even know like what we could do. I mean, if somebody has
Yeah.
engines that can send them light years, they can go the speed of light. I mean, that's just insane. I don't even know what we would have
Yeah.
to counter that. So to think that 1898 people would have anything to counter that is like ridiculous. So yeah, obviously, there had to be something
Yeah.
to kill them. And I thought the plague thing was cool. And it also makes you think about like what it would be like for like an alien to come to Earth. And I feel like that's a valid thing to talk about, is like the bacteria side of it. Because it makes me think of when the Europeans landed in North America and other parts of the world. When they landed in North America, a lot of the Native Americans actually didn't die from, the Europeans just killing them. Obviously, they did commit, they killed a lot of them themselves, the Europeans, but more than 80% of the Native Americans who died during that time when, the U.S. became a country and they slowly took over was from disease. So 80% of them were already dead just because of the disease. So the last 20% was the only remaining amount that was basically, most of them got eradicated after that with the Europeans moving in, but and the Americans. But it's cool to think about from like a Martian perspective as well, where it's like, okay, they come to a new place and they contract our diseases, but it also makes you think what other aliens could bring diseases to the earth, like to the world as well, that could cause
Yeah.
us to die in a similar fashion that the Native Americans died. Like, what if they came to the earth and then they don't even have to shoot anything and 80% of our population immediately dies because we're just not ready for the bacteria? So it's interesting to think about.
It is, and and I haven't seen something like that in most either movies or other books I've read. Is like you don't really the stuff at least I've read have never focused on like the bacteria side of anything.
Yeah. Well, it's
So
not
this is
very
like the
interesting,
first book.
compared to
Yeah,
like
definitely not.
weaponry and compared to like mental games with they play or whatever else they do. But yeah, like the germ side of it is like very real.
Yeah, and was interesting about what they said about the Martians that the Martians didn't have bacteria in
Right.
that. And so I thought that was interesting. There's like, there's no bacteria on Mars, and I'm like, huh, that's interesting. I
Yeah.
don't know if that's a real fact or not, but but
Yeah, it would be cool
for the
to
book,
look
looks
that
like
up and know. But yeah.
sorry, I don't know much about space.
Me either.
I probably should, but but what I another thing I thought was really interesting about the aliens specifically is that they didn't have a wheel. Like they didn't invent the wheel.
Yeah,
They
yeah, yeah.
invented like hovercraft stuff or whatever the hell wire tubes and or not hover. Well, were they hovering like the blocks when they're like
Um
moving them?
I can't remember. I know obviously they had the
Yeah, it was
tripods and they had the like grabbing machines to like pick stuff up, but can't remember.
yeah, but no wheels. So
Yeah, no wheels.
isn't that's pretty interesting to have like that's like a staple of transportation for like the human culture. So seeing how like these creatures didn't have anything with wheels was also it's like, oh, I wonder were they just so intelligent to create all this other stuff that they never needed to make the wheel? Or did they already start off with the wheel but then got so advanced that they stopped using it?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's a funny way also to introduce their technology because, obviously humans are always like or people are always like, it's easier than what's the saying with the wheel, like inventing the wheel. We don't want to reinvent the wheel or whatever. So the fact that like the Martians don't have the wheel is just kind of funny that they just went
Yeah.
down a different path than inventing the wheel, which would probably make their lives easier, but but they didn't need it
Oh,
obviously. So, which makes you think about like if there was an alien race, like let's say there is another like maybe they don't have to be floating Cthulhu like head squid things, but like if there's another
yeah.
Earth type planet really far away and it produces creatures similar to humans, what they would have in comparison to us. Like maybe they don't have a wheel, but they have something even better than the wheel that we never thought of. So
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know.
And I was gonna say about the what was the biggest like theme takeaway from the book?
When I looked up some themes of from this, the one I liked was like evolution and like natural selection, right? So both the Martians and the humans have evolved over time. But like we just talked about with the Martians, they didn't have any bacteria when they were evolving. They didn't have to deal with like microscopic organisms as a problem, while humans have had to deal with that forever. And then on top of that, they didn't invent the wheel. So
Mhm.
despite all their major advancements, there's some things that really draw back their civilization, which similar to humans as well, were like some things that we've evolved into have helped us a lot, but there's certain things that maybe we're not as good at because of just the circumstances of like our evolution made it so that we didn't invent those things. But another part of it with like natural selection, you think about like how humans, natural selection eventually got us to the point where humans exist and they become, the dominant race on the planet. But in this case, you think about it in like a universal perspective. If you think about like every planet in every galaxy in the entire universe, they're kind of playing natural selection against each other a little bit too, because with like the Martians coming over and destroying the human race and taking over that planet, that's basically just, natural selection, but on a planet scale instead of like within Earth.
Yeah.
I kind of liked those themes, but What was a theme that you liked or that you took away
Uh,
from it?
so the biggest thing for me was modesty and superiority. Uh, and also a little arrogance. Like those three themes stood out to me the most because you have like the humans like at the beginning think they're so smart, obviously because on Earth we're the smartest beings on this planet,
Hmm.
so living beings. So you get to part at the beginning where he's like seeing stuff come from Mars or whatever, and no one's like, ah, no, that there's no living thing on Mars. You know, they're already like already think that nowhere else there could be anything better than them. I don't know if that was like intentional or from whatever. That's just kind of what I got from it.
Yeah.
But then when the aliens do actually arrive, everyone's like so arrogant that like, oh, they even though they were able to cross the whole like ocean of space and make it here, they must either be friendly or not as intelligent or whatever because they're just kind of looking at them like, oh, look at these ugly little beings. Oh, they're like, and then they're just hanging around, waving the white flag, trying to show them like, hey, this we're coming in peace. But it's like they don't speak your language, and they because you know they're from Mars, right? So they don't know what you're saying.
Right.
Uh, they don't know what you're doing, and you don't know why they're here. But it's like you just think like the superiority complex, right? It's like they think they're so much better than them that they don't even register that there could be a threat. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't even occur to them because the humans think they're so much better and that they can defend off even if they were going to attack. And so even when that first heat blast came out in surprise and killed a bunch of people, I mean, yeah, people were like freaked out and shit, but there was, and they panicked, right? But no one like left the city yet. They were just like, "Oh, the military will take care of it." Wow, that's traumatizing, but we're still gonna win. You know, it's like they'll take
Right.
care of those pesky aliens. And then as it goes on, then you start getting people in denial. Like when you got was talking to like the priest and all that.
Hmm.
Uh, but then like the priest went crazy because he lost his shit. Well, I guess anyone would in that case, but it was like the deconstruction of the superiority complex into a more modest uh thought process. And some people either went crazy and some went into denial, and then you got people like our main character who works through the whole process until eventually at the end of the book he's just like, oh shit, we need to prepare, we need to be better, and you need to just stop thinking you're better than everybody else type of thing
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
in order to that's the gist. I don't want to go on a 40-minute rant, but that was just my few thoughts on it.
No, I think that's a really good theme as well. And I feel like humans have experienced that. We haven't even needed to experience that, I guess, with like aliens too. You even think about like way back in the day when people couldn't sail to other continents, and like Europeans or whatever continent you'd be on, they'd be like, "Oh, this is the only landmass." Like
Yeah.
there's nothing else out there. And then, eventually we start exploring more and you find that there's other civilizations and other places and you start to, you get humbled a little bit where you no longer think you're the center of everything. And even in astrology, I know like we obviously all of us learned in high school and stuff where people thought the earth was the center of the universe for a really long time, until we realized it's not.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you hit it dead on with like human arrogance being questioned constantly in this book.
Uh, I I like how we're able to just focus on different themes and come up with what we
Yeah.
like better. I'm glad
I
it's different.
Yeah.
To the point.
I think it's a good
Not
book
just
because
the same
it
thing.
brings up these conversations. Like the book itself, the way it's written is not necessarily how, like you said, that I would personally like. I think it could be written better, but I think it's a great foundational book for sci-fi and like these conversations.
Yeah,
So
it's definitely for me, good for, like, a quick read because like,
Yeah.
one of the reasons I don't, like, prefer first person books is because it's like someone how am I explain this? So, I prefer, like, the third person because you can get more into what's going on that the character doesn't know, or you can get into multiple people's heads more. It's personally, it's, like, more descriptive or most other books or stuff would be more descriptive when it came to the type of feelings he was feeling, because a lot of the times we were just kinda being told,
Yeah.
rather than shown. I mean, we were shown, but we didn't, like we didn't feel really the emotion, like, at least I didn't. So, it just felt like I was listening to a guy, like, in, like, a documentary or something, just tell his story without much feeling,
Yeah, it feels like
and
a journal.
yeah, like a journal.
Yeah.
So which, I like those too, like Bram Stoker's Dracula, fucking love that book. So and that's all journal
Oh,
entries.
it's more like a journal style like this.
No, it's all journal entries, like, you
Oh.
have multiple characters, and so the whole story is from the first person, but from different points of view, so I think that one I like a lot better. Uh, I think that one's written better, in my opinion, but
Mhm.
this book is from a time where they spoke different too, so a lot of the words and sayings and phrases and type of just how it comes across is different, and sometimes I had to, like, rewind it a bit just to kinda know what he was saying because there is a lot of words in this or some of the words in this book I didn't know. So,
Yeah, me too, for sure. Especially like the priest, like you said, they call him a curate in the book, or I'm not sure even how to pronounce the word, but just an old
I think you
person
got it.
word for like priest. We
Yeah.
would never ever say that in the modern day.
Mhm.
But uh, just talking about the way the book was written, just I guess shifting over a little bit more to the content, just wanted to talk about something I wrote here. But I actually really liked something I liked, but not I didn't like the first person like you're talking about for the reasons that you described as well. But I did like how it was kind of more focused on just like the day to day of just a dude, just like a random guy, and then a little bit with his brother who would be stuck in this situation. A lot of sci-fi, I feel like modern day sci-fi, there's really big stakes, or there's like some character who's like, has some like really good skill. Like they're really smart, or like if they're like really strong or something. Like I think of like Independence Day, and like in that movie, it's very flashy, and like Will Smith is in the movie, he's like shooting aliens and stuff like that. He's like balling out. But like
Yeah.
in this story, it's not like that at all. It's almost written like a horror book because it's like he's powerless really to do anything except, especially when he's with the priest in the house.
Oh,
He
yeah.
hates the priest hates him, they both hate each other, but they can't really like do anything about it because they can't leave the house, and they need each other because there's no one else there. They'll just be alone, and of course eventually the priest ends up dying. But it's like I thought it was cool to see that perspective of like it's just a random guy trying to survive in this like horrible situation, and like the
Yeah.
emotions you go through dealing with that, and going through it with a person you hate who's delusional, right? Like the priest is
Yeah.
just saying delusional stuff constantly, and you can't do anything about it. You're just stuck in that situation with them, and so I thought it was cool to see that kind of perspective because we rarely get that in sci-fi. I feel like most sci-fi modern day is very like, I don't even know how to
You're the
describe it.
chosen one,
Yeah,
really.
very chosen one-y, like Wheel of Time type thing, or like very grand scale. But in this, it's literally, I mean, the narrator, all he
Paul
does is
Atreides.
yeah, Paul Atreides, the Dune. But yeah, this guy's just he's just a normal guy in England, and he
Yeah.
just basically all he does in this book is just walks between towns. I mean, that's it.
Yeah.
He doesn't really do anything
But
else. So yeah, I mean,
I did like that too, is like because 'cause we're already reading, like, Dark Tower, Wheel of Time that are gonna do, like, the big big bad, big cool ass character guy, chosen one dude.
Yep.
A lot better than like this book. And this book wasn't like the focus of that. It was more of showing that's like, there might be bigger, better, smarter things out there. And even like it compares humans to ants compared to the Martians. And they're like, well, what if the ants to us? Like, what if the ants got a chance to evolve and stuff? And would they be as sympathetic to us as we aren't to them? Most people see ants as pests and kill them or get rid of them whenever they're close to their home or something, right?
Yeah.
So that's all the humans were to the Martians. And I guess that's another thing. I know I'm going to get off topic again, but but back to like what you were talking about earlier with the evolution is like the evolution of empathy as well is like as a human you'd like to think you're full of empathy and love, uh, but are you, or are you just a piece of shit thinking you are? So then they
Yes.
get to they get to the Martians, right? And they're like, the Martians are ruthless, relentless, show no empathy, kill all. They don't give a fuck. They
Right.
suck the blood from humans and eat and drink it. So it's like these people don't give a shit, or not people, these Martians don't give a shit. So, and it just really makes you think is they see humans as animals. And I know you're vegetarian, but like I eat meat, so it's like, and I look at like the cow, right? And I'm like, well, if this cow could read and write and talk to me in English, would I still eat it? I mean, probably. I don't know. I like to eat, I like to eat, but I'm just kidding.
Hey, steak's
I'm,
pretty good.
I'm saying it's pretty good. No, I'm just kidding. Well, obviously that'd be a completely different situation, but
No, I think
but
that's a good
like
comparison.
but yeah, it's like like let's for you if like what's your, I don't know, what do you eat? Do you eat tofu?
I guess.
Or do you
Well,
like
I
tofu?
guess if I eat eggs, I guess. So if an egg
Eggs.
talked to me, it'd be pretty fucking weird, though. Hi there.
So hi there. It's just
Don't put me in a
I'd probably
pan, please.
like the more it talks, the more I just want it to die.
Yeah.
But yeah. So yeah, I wasn't really on like a straight, that was just kind of what I
Well,
wanted
I
to
like
say.
the
The empathy.
this is a nice segue that because you brought it up about them drinking blood, and I like this conversation as well within the book where he was talking about how they don't like you think about the things that humans waste a lot of time on. I mean, we don't waste time on it, but we enjoy those activities. Are they necessary? Maybe not necessary, but we enjoy them. Like things like eating like long dinners or like going out to eat and stuff like that. Humans spend an insane amount of time and money on that kind of stuff. So when you think of the Martians in this book where they don't need to do that, literally all they do is just suck some blood through a siphon and then they're
Yeah.
done. They don't have a digestive system. They just absorb the blood and they have all the nutrients. They don't have to do anything else. Like the amount of time and energy that is saved just from that activity alone is crazy. So if you think about if there is other alien species out there who don't need to, digest or whatever, like these Martians do, I mean, the amount of time and energy they save is extraordinary. They're always going to outwork humans,
Yeah.
if they can do that. And then similarly with like sexual stuff too, I think the narrator was talking about how they don't, have like sexual relationships. They just like I guess a bulb like grows off of them and then it just becomes another Martian. Like they don't really need to um raise the Martian. Like it just kind of grows off of them
Yeah.
and then it just drops off and it's another Martian. So that's another thing where like humans spend an insane amount of time and energy on, right? Relationships with the
Mhm.
other sex, and then on top of that raising children. So like not having to do eating and
Yeah.
raising children slash keeping relationships. I mean, that's a insane amount of time and energy that they get to save and just put towards technology and stuff, which is, obviously probably why they have better technology in this book.
Yeah. That's that is actually a pretty cool comparison with humans and those Martians. because we don't know like too much about like the inner thoughts of the Martians, but we can kind of think a little bit about what they could be thinking about through their actions and how their bodies work and how they, react to things. And so obviously they're coming to Earth because Mars is dying. So they have all the time. They have a lot of time to get further down the technological route because, like you said, they don't have to worry about a lot of the stuff uh, us humans like to do. Or because a lot of people would say that like one of the main reasons for even living is relational to create relationships and have basically just have happy relationships with people is
Yeah,
like
absolutely. Have a
so
family,
yeah,
have
family, friends,
yeah.
and peers, such. And so if we're working towards that, that's a lot of our purpose just in there. But if the Martians' only purpose is for survival and they don't need to have relationships, they don't need to take a dump or whatever, they don't need to do a bunch of other shit. All they need to do is focus on living. And what do they need to do to live? They need to get to Earth and kill everybody. But then it ends up just killing themselves in the process. So
Yeah,
I don't know
exactly.
what they do about that. But there's no sequel to this book to my knowledge. So I don't know if they ever return. I know they talked about them kind of returning or if they return.
And
Or they
yeah,
probably will.
talking about the returning thing, I did want to ask you this question as well because the narrator talks about it towards the end of the book where he's like, we're talking about all these things that happened during the invasion and after the invasion. We've made changes in society, but we're not talking enough about a second invasion, like the possibility of the Martians retooling and maybe coming back and finding a way to like fight the bacteria or like whatever they need to do to make sure they don't die when they do the invasion. Do you feel like that would happen? Like, let's say this happens right now. Let's say there's actually an alien invasion and it happens exactly the same as the War of the Worlds and they leave. Um, do you think people would go back to being like that arrogant where they wouldn't prepare for another invasion, or do you think we would in the modern day maybe be a little smarter and be like, okay, we need to like build up the planetary defense?
I think our governments would use this as an excuse to create a world government and completely take over with an authoritarian rule.
Oh, interesting.
But yeah, because I mean, it's the perfect excuse.
Yeah,
It's the
no,
perfect
yeah.
excuse to get everyone together. It's like, hey, this is a world threatening thing. I'm looking at you, China, or whatever. So it's like it's it's I don't know. It's like it's the perfect excuse for people in high power who would want to take over the world or at least have a one world government. It's the perfect excuse. Let's all come together to fight off an alien uh threat that could kill us all. And granted, it's a pretty damn good excuse.
Yeah, no, for sure.
But uh but I would also be like, mm, just let me die. Don't throw me in your camps. Or what
it
else?
could go very south or it could go very well. I feel like it could
Yeah.
become Star Trek: The Next Generation, or it could
Yeah.
become like Nazi Germany for the whole world.
Yeah, it I would and honestly I would say it'd probably lean more
Yeah, the not
towards
good.
the
Yeah,
Nazis, yeah. And
considering
it's only be
our track record as a race. Yeah,
yeah. Well, I'm like people, that whole quote of like power corrupts absolute.
yeah,
So it's like, and even like me or you, if we were given a bunch of power, who's to say we would be able to handle it correctly, or if it would go to our heads? And even in this book, like it's the superiority complex. The humans think they're so much better than the aliens
yeah,
that they literally get fucked multiple times for not leaving the city in time or whatever, just because they didn't see it at they thought they would win,
yeah,
you know?
definitely.
So you get a big alien threat attacking the world, the government gonna be like, okay, gonna make a world government so that we can protect the planet. But then who's to say they won't have that power later? They always have the Martians do come back,
Yeah.
and we're not prepared. So
Yeah.
yeah, don't need to get all more political. I thought that'd just be a fun route to
I think
think
it's a
think
really
about.
interesting idea to explore, and I think it's another. I think he said that on purpose at the end of the book to like explore that question because it's like what would we do? And yeah, I could
Yeah,
definitely see yeah like a unifying government or at least like expansion of like unification of government where it's like at least maybe military wise like we got to have like a better
yeah,
way to fix this problem because then you have a mutual enemy. But yeah, like it's crazy to think about.
but I could see like the other way going to where they're like, well, maybe back then rather than now, just because since we have like the internet and we're able to see everything constantly all the time, like anything that's recorded, is on the internet somewhere. But back then you couldn't do that. It was only in like newspapers and shit. So there's not
True.
really, and maybe some damage, but over time buildings get rebuilt, you know? As time goes, people forget, new generations come and don't they didn't live through like we didn't live through world any of the world wars, you know? I mean we so it's like we didn't live through World War One or two and I was born in the late 90s. So it's like besides for like the pictures and some videos or whatever that they have of World War Two, we don't know like I don't really know how it felt to really be in that situation. But like 9/11 here in America, every time 9/11 happens, they show the broadcast. Everyone gets all the feels and all that because we were reminded of it a lot. We can see it happening firsthand on TV all the time. But back when this book was written, they didn't have any of that. It was just newspapers. So like you're growing up 50 years later after the Martian attack, you're just like, oh, whatever, boomer. You and your Martian craze, you
That's
don't give a shit.
I mean that's a really good point because if it was in 1898 even outside of England it would be hard to convince people or well I guess I know it's uh,
It
they
happened around
attacked in
the
other
world, but yeah, you
countries.
get it.
Yeah, but outside of those major cities where that stuff happened, it would be difficult to even convince people outside of those areas that that actually happened because, like you said, there's no internet. There's no. You could print newspapers, like you said, or print papers, but unless somebody literally goes and sees like one of the dead aliens or something like that, it's going to be hard to like convince people long term that this is a serious issue. So yeah, I think that's a really good point. But yeah, with the internet now, like obviously everyone would be aware of it
Yeah. We would
instantly.
we would yeah, it'd
even
be
when
hard to
like
forget.
even when aliens don't actually seem to be there, like when there's crop circles or whatever, that still sometimes makes like headline news.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if an actual alien like fucking came out and attacked, like that would yeah, everyone would know.
Oh yeah, it'd be fucking pandemonium.
Yeah, it'd be crazy. But
So,
Elon Musk would just
yeah,
go to Mars and then
yeah.
join them.
Join the Martian. What if Elon Musk is a Martian
You know,
and he's just trying to get home, ET that
he's
shit.
just trying to get home. He's all this money and time has just been trying to get back because the Martians can't get him back home.
He
It's
he
hilarious.
comes back with a fucking tripod. No,
And a heat ray.
no, So like,
That's funny.
uh, damn, I had another. Okay. So do you think? Because like I know that those like Avatar movies came out too, but like as like the human invaders.
Right.
But I'm like, this also begs the question too of like, so the Martians are on a dead planet. They got nothing to lose.
Yeah.
They go to Earth, take it over. They literally have nothing to lose. So they're going full force. So what if like Earth's dying and let's say Mars would be the only place to settle. And so but there's other creatures living on Mars. would you go join the military and go to Mars, eradicate the species that's basically like ants to us, just for the human survival?
I think people would absolutely do that. It
Yeah,
goes back to
yeah,
like the natural selection thing I was talking about, where evolution, kind of causes some of that natural selection. Just well, naturally, I guess that's why it's called natural selection. But in a way, it's also
yeah.
natural to think that a race that is technologically superior with a dying planet would absolutely eradicate another race to take their planet if that was the option. If that's the only option, they're absolutely going to do that.
Yeah, because
Um,
it's like at that point, it's either me or you,
yeah.
and I don't want to die.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
And
nature, at least from an Earth perspective, I mean, I'm not.
yeah, but
Yeah, this is the only
from my Earth
perspective
from a
we can
Earth's
talk from.
perspective,
Yeah, from a Klingon perspective, it's
I'm
also the
clear.
same. But yeah, like nature's whole thing is like survival. That's why evolution is a thing. It's why natural selection is a thing. It's like what DNA and like what jumble of genes makes it possible for you to survive. That's the one that's going to win. So like with in this case, the Martians have better technology, they're going to win.
Yeah,
They don't have to eat. They don't have to, have kids. They're going to win cuz they're just they can outwork us. But obviously in this case, with the germs they died, but yeah. I
yeah,
think for what you're
yeah,
asking, like if there was another race on another planet, then yeah, we would absolutely. I think we would do it.
yeah. Oh yeah, because I mean, like at the end of the day, I know like the word of today is empathy, but when it comes down to it, uh, it's like let's say there's like these bunny creatures, right? And they're gonna be a super hindrance to like they're like evil bunnies, and so like it, but would you like kill the entire race just so that they like let's say they eat children? They're just going around eating children. Like you're just gonna kill the whole. Okay,
Yeah, I guess
okay.
I think
I
that would
thought
be
you know
the real question, right? Is like, would we eradicate all of them? And maybe we
yeah
would not eradicate all of them, but we would at least cripple them to the point where we could transfer to their planet. You know what I
yeah
mean? But
'cause
um,
cohabitation is not possible.
yeah,
Like
if
uh
if there's no like ability to
yeah
coexist, then yeah, we'd probably
yeah.
kill all of
Because I do think, like, with the Martians coming to Earth is like so, like, the Earth, like, the humans are, intelligent enough to form societies, cities, territories, that sort of thing. Uh, so if the Martians came and needed to live, why bother, uh, why bother trying to get their own piece of land and spread all their stuff, and when they would have to like negotiate with these beings that are basically like ants to them, right?
them. Yeah.
So they're like, fuck it. You guys are just they're too complicated to keep around. Like it would be like have you ever read that book or seen that like French animated movie? It's called Fantastic Planet.
I don't think so. No.
No? Oh, you should, it's amazing. But it's kind of like the same thing. Like I'm not gonna tell you the whole story. I'll just give you the synopsis. Basically, it's like they have these big blue, intelligent, giant aliens, and I forget what they call the humans on this planet, but they're like Oni or Omi or something. But they're like as tiny as ants, and so, but since they're like humans are like intelligent enough to like think and act and form political groups and such, they become kind of a pain in the ass. Like unlike regular ants, where ants would just do their thing, eat, sleep, whatever. But humans are a lot more complicated than that. Like we can think, but they think they're so much more intelligent than humans, and humans have become such a bothersome that they just try to kill all of them. So that's kind of like the same thing with this book. Is that keeping us around would have been more of an annoyance than just go ahead and kill
Right.
them all.
Yeah. Yeah. We're like the pest.
Yeah, basically.
which
Um,
you can't even really blame them because it's like we've discussed, we would do it too.
yeah.
So
Would we be any different?
yeah,
Yeah.
probably not.
Guaranteed we'd do it. The same thing.
Yeah,
But,
exactly.
do you have anything else you'd wanna
No, I had a good amount of notes I kind of wrote here, but we just naturally went through all the topics I kind of wanted to cover. So I'm good.
Nice. Uh, so I guess my final thoughts is that it's a classic, obviously. Uh, I think the first person type narrative is definitely outdated by this time, which is, obvious. It's just how literature evolves. Uh, I think it's still worth a read. Obviously, there's a lot of themes and stuff you can get from it. Uh, and you get to learn some new words that you probably have never heard before too,
Right.
that are in there since it, and you get some old school speech. Get you to actually. It actually had to make me think a little bit more, just because it's not like that different than how we talk, but it's like slightly different enough to where I have to be like, okay, the fuck did you just say?
Yeah,
Like,
it's
so,
just different
so
enough where you can't automatically understand it sometimes. You have to dig a little deeper.
yeah, and I like that about this book. It actually gets you to really think about it. So, is it my favorite book in the world? No. Um, was it worth having on my bookshelf? Yes, and I do have it. So, I guess that's my final personal thoughts on the book.
I'm kind of in a similar boat with my thoughts as well. It's a classic, like you said, and some of these classics are like that, right? They're foundational pieces of work for a genre, for a philosophy, for any kind of thought or whatever it is, any kind of medium or media. And you can definitely see how this book is like that. It's a foundational piece of sci-fi, and it makes you think about all the things that we just talked about. So, kind of the value of the book to me is like if you're gonna want to read this, if you love sci-fi and you watch a ton of sci-fi and you talk about these kinds of themes with your friends all the time, then you're probably not going to get a lot of value out of this book, right? Because modern sci-fi covers a lot of these things too. But if for like a classic and for like seeing the foundational work and like the kind of cool perspective of just a random guy surviving in a Martian invasion is kind of cool. So I think it's a good read, but like you said, it's not my favorite book, and I
Nope.
don't think everybody will get value out of it. Like I said, if you're like super into sci-fi, you're probably not gonna get much out of this. But yeah,
Yeah, there's not really much going on besides like, well, like technology wise, besides like the tripod and the heat ray.
right, exactly.
Unlike I like sci-fi. I'm not like super into it. Like I've watched all Next Generation except the movie. I still need to finish the movies. But yeah, it's like with modern sci-fi is just fucking crazy. There's a bunch of shit going on. This book's more simplistic with it, and that's kind of like why I really enjoyed it too, is because it wasn't just trying to throw a bunch of doohickey bullshit. It was just like,
Yeah,
this is what it is.
the
We're
thing
fucked.
the thing with modern sci-fi is like, yeah, it's just all these topics and themes have been done so many times that it can get kind of annoying with all this stuff they throw in, like you said. So it's kind of refreshing to read this book because it's just the Martian invasion, right? It's just a guy trying to survive. So it's kind of cool to see that perspective instead of some modern take that throws some weird element in there. But yeah.
Yeah. See, all right. So if we're both good,
Yeah.
just double checking real quick. You good on everything?
Yeah, I think yeah, we went through everything I was going to talk about. I didn't even really need to prompt anything. It just naturally went to those places. So.
Cool. Well, I'd like to thank everyone for listening to this. If you did, this has been The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells, presented by Two Rivers Tabac Book Club. Thanks for listening to another quick reads by us. Uh, and yeah, I'm out. You can say something, Andrew, if you want.
Yeah, thanks for listening. Like Josh said, if you have any comments or suggestions for us, feel free to let us know. Give us a like on YouTube, it helps a lot. And if you're listening to us on a podcast app, feel free to give us a review or any kind of feedback you'd like. But thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Smell you later, Red.